Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Grapplers Academy. Got myself, Simon, and my co-host Bonn. Today we're looking at Dillon Danis versus Garry Tonon in the 2015 ADCC, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's another ADCC match and a good one actually. Some decent techniques to take away from this, both wrestling with the stand up and on the ground as well. Quite an interesting little match as well when you look at the rivalry between the two. It's like a little New York rivalry going on between the Blue Basement and Marcelo's boys.
Yeah, this was before Danis left. Marcelo's wanted
under undisclosed circumstances.
Oh, there's that much drama going on with some of the gyms. I'd love to be a little fly on the wall with it, just because I'm a bit of a nosy sod as it is.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day, weren't we? We were trying to figure out exactly how it was that he ended up becoming. What was the wording that was used? It wasn't banned from the gym, was it? It was something a little bit stronger, along the lines of being asked to leave.
Yeah, exiled.
Yeah. Exiled. Let's go with that one. Yeah.
But didn't it come around similar time to when he started working with Conor McGregor, wasn't it? And got big boots.
So he's got a funny reputation, Dillon Danis, hasn't he? It's, for anybody who doesn't really know, or some people might have seen him more knocking around with McGregor as McGregor's jits training partner for a lot of his fights, and that's probably actually where he's got most of his own reputation and notoriety from. If you look at the incidents post the Khabib fight and some of the other stuff that he's been involved in, he's definitely not afraid to. I was going to use some choice words then, but yeah, he's definitely not afraid to ruffle a couple of feathers.
No, definitely. I think one thing we've sort of noticed as well is pre and post looking like a pint of Guinness with his haircut.
Well, I mean, I've not got any hair to make a comment on that, so I'll leave that to you, mate.
Mate, I'm in the same boat, mate. I need to cut my hair at the moment, but like Garry Tonon's known for his interesting haircuts and whatnot. Like in last year's ADCC, he turned up looking like a Super Saiyan, but I think that's sort of bit tongue in cheek. Whereas Danis kind of believes that looking like a pint of Guinness is a good look. Like, I don't know. Like, it's not for me. If it's whatever floats his boat, but we're not here to talk about hairstyles anyway, are we?
I think that's the sort of thing that I saw a couple of lads having when I was back in primary school. Is that like blonde top fade?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think Super Saiyan's probably a bit generous on Garry Tonon's appearance at that ADCC. I was going to go with more of like a skinny version of Uncle Sam. It's a little bit disturbing, to be honest, isn't it? But again, I've not got any hair, so I can't make a comment.
Yeah, to be fair, like I'm the same. Like I'm only talking out of jealousy here, like just because I can't grow the hair. And no, I wouldn't actually. Even if I could grow hair, I wouldn't do that with it. But still.
What's also pretty interesting about these guys as well is, like, aside from the grappling accomplishments, they've followed a pretty similar path, haven't they, with varying levels of exposure and success, but they both dived and put more focus into the MMA careers now.
Yeah, they have, yeah. And they both had some impressive performances, really, haven't they?
Yeah.
Danis has racked up a couple of impressive submission wins.
Mm.
And Tonon's gone out there and, like, from the fights that I've seen, he's kind of tried to show that he's not just a grappler with his fighting.
Yeah, he's doing well over in one championship, isn't he? So really interesting. Like, obviously, he can go out there and get the finishes with the submissions, which I think he has done on a couple of occasions. But rather than trying to finish the fights quickly, he's going out there and getting time in the ring, like, to sharpen up his striking and get his boxing in there. And I think also definitely not an underrated part of Tonon's game, but maybe people who don't know as much about him aren't aware of how good his wrestling is.
Yes. Now, like I was looking at a couple of his matches recently, and it's not just that he's willing to go out there and sort of wrestle with people, but I think it's the versatility as well of him. Like, he's got an amazing guard, like really good retention, but also he can take you down. He can pass you guard, and he loves a scramble. Like, I think most scrambles he comes out of it with some sort of advantage, which I think is quite a good trait to have and a good skill set to have as an accomplished grappler.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you'll see when we get into this match today that a lot of his openings and attacks come off a scramble off the back of some of his wrestling. But yeah, definitely, like you said, he's the more accomplished grappler out of the two. EBI champ, multiple EBI champ, ADCC veteran, bronze medal last year in 2019. I think he lost to JT Torres in his weight category, who went on to win it, and then lost against Gordon Ryan, who again went on to win the Absolute in that division. I think he competed on Polaris a couple of times against Paul Harris, which was a good match.
That was a very exciting match to watch. I think as well it's worth noting his career leading up to his sort of black belt career. It was good, but there's certainly other athletes out there that have had a much more accomplished white through to brown belt career. And it seems like he really sort of took into his stride when he started to sort of come onto that ADCC world around like 2013, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2013, and then followed up with some of those EBIs 2015, 16, and then pretty much a good run then, all the way up until 2017, where I think he stopped competing in some of the grappling tournaments and the super fights, put a bit more of a focus on his MMA career, but still doing it at the top level. I mean, coming out of MMA training to hit ADCC and bronze medal in that is no small achievement.
No, not at all. It's definitely something that's worth noting. But I think looking at Danis, he sort of had a bit of the opposite, hasn't he, with his career and his achievements. Like, he's had really, really successful sort of brown belt career, 2013 to 15, multiple Pan Championships, Abu Dhabi World Pros, he's absolute and weight divisions. Like, he's achieved quite a lot. And then when it seems like he got his black belt around 2015, was it? 2015, 16?
Then,
yeah, and he might have done the same thing as Tonon, where he started to focus a bit more on his MMA career, but his grappling career was a little less, just a little less. There's a little less wins in there in the major tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a gi competitor as well as no gi, isn't he? And you look at some of the names that he's come up against in competitions or super fights, and he's not taking small fights. Leandro Lowe, Merigali, he's not taking easy fights, or he's not certainly got easy fights in his division. So it's a tough game. You know, there's going to be one winner and one loser, and against top level competition like that, you're not always going to be the guy who's coming out on top, unfortunately.
No, definitely. Like I said, like some of his recent ones, he's got Muhammad Ali recently, Lucas Barboza, Jake Shields. Definitely but he's also got some good wins against some top end players as well. Like, he's got Jackson Souza, he's got a win against, a couple of wins against Agazam. And
again, Agazam's another really popular character amongst his competitors, isn't he? So,
I think that's probably why they met twice already. Sort of like battle of the heels, isn't it?
vying for top spot.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But I mean, going back to Tonon, and this match was always going to be an exciting one. They've competed twice. Again, a rematch on the Polaris event. I think, can't remember which one it was. Maybe number 5. It was one of the earlier ones, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But Tonon's matches are always exciting. Like, he's got highlight reels, including finishes, and you look at some of the stuff that he did in this year's ADCC, just as an example. Probably one of the best matches in the tournament. And then, like, a really nice scissoring takedown to a heel hook.
Yeah, was that Edwin Jammy, wasn't it?
Najmi, yeah, he got that heel hook finish, which was nice. And then was it against Canuto that The highlight that was probably the highlight of the tournament in terms of like excitement for a match. So
100%. I think
between him and Jeff Glover, like
yes.
you're always going to get a good fight with those two.
No, 100%. Like I was about to say, for me, Garry Tonon is, along with Jeff Glover, is like one of my favourite fighters to watch. And arguably, I'd even say that he's probably the best one out of the basement. His record might not be as decorated as, say, Gordon Ryan, but Garry Tonon's more exciting to watch. I think he puts it a bit more on the line than Gordon Ryan. And out of the others in the blue basement, I think he's, let's say, he's more entertaining to watch, and you don't know what's going to come. Like, yeah, he's great with his leg locks, but look at his back control as well. Like, look at the other aspects that he's got to his game. His guard recovery, like, he doesn't look worried when his guard gets past. He just recovers really easily and goes straight back on the attack. His counter wrestling, his initial wrestling, like, he takes the fight to the fight, and he realizes that he wants it to be a spectator sport, and he wants the fans to enjoy it. And for me, that puts him up there as probably one of the greatest of this generation to come through.
Yeah, I think that goes back to a point that you made earlier, as well as being able to have that level of confidence in your game comes down to having a well-rounded game.
Yeah,
having the wrestling, having the leg entanglement skill, being able to control on the back, and then you don't need to be worried about where the match goes. And it just goes back to a point that we've made a couple of times already on this podcast. Is just about for fighters up and coming. Yeah, certainly have a handful of techniques that you want to perfect and kind of make a little bit more of your own, but also be well-rounded and have confidence in all the positions. And I think I know something that older players at the blue basement are doing is like wrestling and grappling from bad positions. So you get your confidence from side control if you've got your back taken, or if you started in an armbar or something like that. It's like, you've been there 100 times in a week of training, so it's no big deal to try and work your way out of that position.
No, definitely. And I think as well, like going back to this match now, because sort of like one thing that we touched on when we were looking at it initially was the confidence between the two of the fighters. Like Garry Tonon, as soon as he steps on the mat, he's straight away looking at Danis, whereas Danis seems to be looking off the mat, whether he's looking for his corner or whether he's looking just elsewhere. His focus isn't on Tonon from the get-go. And for me, I think Garry Tonon starts to win this match from the beginning, where with his psychology and with his sort of confidence in his ability there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's impossible to get inside a fighter's head with what they're thinking from like Dillon Danis' point of view, but you can see, as you say, from the beginning and then throughout the whole match, that Tonon's clearly, not fazed by this matchup, and just goes to prove that all the way through the match with the way that he's attacking. Do you want to talk on anything more, or do you want to start looking into that? Do you want to pull the match up?
Yeah, let's go. Let's jump straight into that. So we'll line it up. Yeah, so as you'll see here, just from the still at the moment, you can sort of see where Garry Tonon's focus is, and Dillon Danis looking off the mat. Like, you can sort of see the way that they both carried themselves going into the match going forward, just how the psychology behind it all and the confidence difference between the two fighters really shows through here. Anything you want to sort of add on to this, Bonn?
Yeah, I think we've already said it, but Tonon's just looking super relaxed. Like, just looks relaxed all the way through the fight. He's got the confidence. He's had a good run in competition up to this point. I don't think he's particularly worried about this matchup.
No, true. So do start playing it. You can sort of see how relaxed. But also just by the freedom of his movement, you can sort of see, like, Danis just looks a little bit tighter. Tonon's going for different things here. Like, he's moving around a lot. It looks like he's having fun. Like he's dancing a little bit, to be fair.
Yeah, it's like a warm-up drill almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
And interestingly, I like this bit when we were looking. He almost looks like he's setting up that flying outside Sinkaku entry that he pulled off in last year's ADCC. I think Danis got pretty wise to that though, and pulled his leg back almost immediately.
Yeah, I think I think that's one that he likes to go for himself, though, isn't it, as well? So he's
yeah. That's a good point actually, because he's not a slouch on the leg game, is he? He's got good finishes and knowledge of the leg game.
Oh yeah, 100%. But I think knee bar is one of his higher end, high percentage submissions that he's got. But like for me, just like looking at Garry Tonon's face and how calm he is in this guard, it just sort of says a lot about confidence, really.
Yeah, he's just letting him feel him out, isn't he? He's putting him in those bad positions and kind of feeling what his game's like.
Mm.
And that's a really nice entry there. So let's pause that and back that up, because that's well worth having a look over. So yeah. what we kind of see on that initial phase is that Danis has got a collar tie and uses a snap down to try and disturb Tonon's balance, but rather than resisting too hard and going with it, he kind of allows it to happen and then comes immediately up on a single leg.
Yeah, definitely. So do you want to talk through, as we get in here, what Tonon's doing?
Yeah, so at the moment, like there is the perfect point to stop that. So Danis is kind of pulled a snap down. I don't really know like he's looking for taking the back there or going around by the side like a snap down and back take, because he's pretty flat-footed at this point, isn't he? It doesn't really look like he's trying to do anything other than disturb his balance. And if we carry on playing through, Tonon takes advantage of that and comes immediately onto a single leg. He's already felt it out a couple of times in the match and just comes straight up on it from this point. Probably putting Danis on the back foot a little bit, because I don't think he was really expecting that, to be honest.
No, not at all. But like, you got to sort of credit here Danis's reaction though, and initial sort of defenses that he's going for. Like, yep. He's got the arm across Tonon's chest and face, trying to stop him from sort of getting in further in. He's moving his legs back to try and sprawl a little bit, and that Tonon's wrestling is of a really high level. And you can sort of see that where he's adjust himself as we start moving forward here.
Yeah, I think the use of that arm that's across the chest there is what allows Tonon to get the overhook in a minute, isn't it? So if you carry on playing through that there, he's using that arm that's across the chest. He dives his own hand in under the armpit and locks that up. So now Danis can't get that out. And you can see there he's starting to turn his hips to initiate the Uchimata throw. Does a really good job of getting in underneath Danis on this one and starting to disturb his balance. And if we kind of play through this, he does a good job. Little tip on this one is like getting that leg up and trying to hop in towards them to try and occupy the space that their feet is and get underneath their hips. And he's doing a nice job of that. You can see there that Danis is trying to drop the elbow and pull it through, but because he's got such a tight pinch on the overhook, he's not able to get it out.
No, definitely. I think another thing to try and point out with this is the downward pressure that Tonon's getting here over the shoulder. Like I said, as he's sort of falling forward and trying to get that leg in between Danis's legs, Tonon's trying to send his head and his weight downwards as he's hooking into Danis's sort of base and posture and trying to send him over.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that would make this a little bit more effective is if he was able to control the far wrist on the other side. So then he could start pulling him down and creating a tighter spiral down to the floor as he's raising that leg up. But yeah, as you said, the aim is to try and get Danis's shoulders down whilst raising the leg up.
Definitely. And here's sort of where he starts to really initiate that and throw his weight a bit more forward.
You can see he's right underneath him there, isn't he? He's basically underneath his hips, in between his legs.
Mm.
And then that shoulder pressure is just doing enough. He's up on the toes and gets that weight forward and starts to hit the takedown here. And we can see there, that's a good point if we just freeze a second, is where Danis's wrist is coming down to base on the floor. If Tonon had that, he'd been able to pull it in underneath and take away any potential base with the hand.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think as well, what's worth noting is Danis's own grip adjustment. So he goes from being here around the shoulder to being round the waist, which again is going to help with keep his balance, as well as try and control Tonon that little bit more and not be thrown with as much ease. But the way that sort of Tonon fell to the side and sort of pushed him over to that sort of leg that he's balancing on kind of helped him come up on top with that.
Good reactions though from Danis as soon as they hit the ground, because he does a good job of, as Tonon's base and posture is up, he's able to get in underneath on the leg and shelve that on top of his shoulder, and that's essentially what allows him to kind of mount a defence and escape on this. So immediate reaction and getting in and shelving and being aware of potential positions that can happen.
Well, definitely. I think as well that's sort of part of his leg locking knowledge there, coming in to sort of go up and attack the leg. But personally, I'd have liked to see Danis keep hold of this leg. Maybe even use his hand to block Tonon's knee here and sort of run through with a follow-up takedown.
There is the opportunity there for something, isn't it? But you can see he's already trying to back up. Like, I don't think, like we were talking about the psychology of this match before, he's already trying to back out. He doesn't want to go forward and engage, and you can see there he just pushes the leg off and tries to disengage. So not really following up with the initiative that you're talking about on that.
No, you can sort of see in his face there, he looks a little bit deflated.
Relieved.
Relieved, yeah, definitely. Yeah. But we'll sort of continue here with sort of playing through it as they sort of have a bit more of a clinch exchange here again. And then the sort of next sequence of attack is a bit of it's Tonon's first leg attack, really, isn't it, against Danis?
Yeah. Yeah, there's an interesting exchange in this bit of the match because Garry Tonon's played around with his wrestling. He's had some degree of success with it, but now he goes for a bit of a guard playing game and tries to invite Danis in that way. He's looking for those butterfly hooks to create elevation and get in underneath the legs. And you can kind of see all the time that he's on his back, he's looking and fishing for the legs. And this is a good example of what we were talking about in the introduction about Garry Tonon being comfortable in those bad positions. So if we just pause there a second, what actually ends up happening here is he's allowed Danis to get kind of onto the side. There was no real attempt at framing there, was there? Although the potential was there to do it. And you'll see as we go through this frame that Garry Tonon's got his eyes on that near leg all the way through. He's basically trying to wrap it up and get in underneath and pull Danis on top of him to start creating a leg entanglement.
This one here, isn't it?
Yeah, so the near side leg, you can kind of see that he's looking for it and starting to fish for it. And I think actually just letting Danis play around in that passing position on the side, he's thinking, I'm gonna allow him to do that. So I'm opening up the space to get in on that leg. But Danis is pretty aware on that and just brings his leg back and starts to posture up on that. And interesting on the way that he tries to pass the leg in the second, he tries to go for a throw pass, doesn't he? So when we get to that in a second, that opens up a good opportunity for Tonon to get in underneath and not go for the leg that he was initially looking for, but he's able to get an entanglement in on the far leg.
Oh, definitely. I think as well, like, it's worth noting there are a few frames here that Tonon is putting in place. So if you watch this near side elbow, as he's sort of moving through, as Danis is trying to drive some shoulder pressure in, he counters that. Again, it's only subtle, but it's like just a little bit of a frame in there where anybody's ever any sort of like sports massage work done onto the bicep, that's not that comfortable. But then it's also a frame that's going to shift his weight off of his hips, giving him
I don't know how you feel about this phase of the match with like Tonon's mindset, but it felt to me like he was doing enough to prevent the pass, but just doing enough to bait Danis on a little bit more to give him some space.
Yeah, like, do you know what? I'd have to agree with you on that because sort of a few of the matches that I've watched with Tonon, he'll throw things out there in a sort of a poor attempt at pulling it off, to then sort of use that later on to be like, okay, I know how they react to these certain things. So now I know how to counter their reactions. So like he was doing it, the Gilbert Burns one I watched yesterday, he throws out the Imanari roll twice, but he doesn't actually try to wrap the leg up. And then on the third attempt, he wraps the leg up and almost gets it. And if it wasn't for Gilbert Burns' quick reactions, it possibly would have been a finisher submission. So I think that's another lesson there that a lot of young players, or even just any player, use techniques in a way to set things up. So don't just try to make every attack full intentional. Maybe throw a few things out there to sort of dangle the carrot, see how they respond, and then use their reactions to mount up your future attacks, as opposed to making one attack attempt, it not working, and thinking, do you know what, I'm going to go on to the next thing. Do a poor attempt just to see how they react, and then just tighten each attempt up the more you go back to it.
I think probably an easier concept for some people to understand who don't have that mind frame for grappling is if they've ever done any striking, or even if you've ever watched any striking or boxing, you got to think about what we're just talking about here, like your jab. Now, a jab's not always necessarily there to end the fight. It's there to open up opportunities and gauge your opponent's reaction. So it's distance, timing. You're looking for what their reaction and movement is following your technique. And it's kind of like data crunching. You're building a library of their reactions so you can predict when you do go for the one that you're intentionally going for to either lock up the submission or, you know, land a heavy overhand right or something like that. You've built up that data bank of reactions first. And then when you actually do go to commit, you've got a higher percentage guess of what their reaction is going to be.
No, 100%. But we'll play this sequence on a little bit more so we can sort of see how they're responding and how they move on with this. Because like you said, like, Tonon's not phased. He's got that tricep control. He's using his shin to ride the bicep. Danis is driving a lot of pressure through there. But this entry, like, look at the torque he's getting on the knee already.
Yeah, that was on tight.
Yeah, he's got a good poker face, but you can sort of see.
And Danis is doing the right things to escape there, isn't he? He's got the foot on his glutes. He's kicking away and turning away from it to limit that heel exposure. He's trying to clear the knee line below Tonon's legs to effectively escape this. He needs to get that knee down and start running away. But
yeah,
Gary's got a nice bite on that heel.
Oh, 100%. But what we're going to do is going to go back to the way you got into that.
So yeah, like I was
like
saying, yeah, like we were saying before, initially it looks like he's going for the near side leg, so the one with the red band on it, on the ankle. So he's kind of playing for that leg initially, but Danis's reaction or game plan here opens up the foul leg, doesn't it? He's as soon as we go through this phase, he starts to push and try and throw the legs past. What Tonon does there is switches his position and allows him to come over the top, and in fact actually attacks the opposite leg from the one that he's been looking for initially.
Yeah, I think one thing that's worth noting as well is watching where this leg goes. As he steps over Danis, as soon as he starts to sort of make a bit of progress, and he goes straight for sort of trying to post in the hip. I think that's where Danis kind of realises that and pushes up out of this as well. Which, for someone who's had to posture up strongly out of the position, you're going to have one leg or one thing that's on the ground that's solid and grounded, which makes it a great place to be attacked. And as you can see, Tonon's no slouch here. He's going to slide one leg through the middle, rotate his body, and step over the leg that he's just isolated there with his rib cage. You can sort of see he's sort of falling back, but his head goes one direction and his hips come another direction, and he traps this leg here between his hips. He rotates round, and then he uses that second leg to secure it. But you can see Danis there as well. He's coming straight in there to minimise any sort of hook or control that Tonon can get onto his leg. But for me, an arm battling a leg, it's not going to win that battle that often. He's probably chose the wrong limb for it, and rather than pulling it in to try and open it up, he possibly should have pushed the knee down to clear a bit more space. But anything you want to sort of add to that bit, Bonn?
No, just as you said, there's a couple of opportunities here for him to mount a little bit earlier of an escape. But this whole sequence, I know we slowed it down, happens in probably about 2 seconds. It's you've got to have pretty quick reaction times, and it's all down to muscle memory here. But one thing that Tonon's doing well is just putting enough blockers in that Danis can't backstep. He kind of blocked off around the back of the knee with that hand that's now up in the air off the mat, just preventing him from backstepping. But yeah, Tonon did a really good job of just occupying that inside space and isolating off the leg, as you said.
No, definitely, yeah. And you can sort of see that Danis here now is in sort of getting in a better position to try and defend here. I think you've got to credit Tonon's ability there to adjust. Like, this seems like a very small detail, but the way that he got Danis to rebalance and transfer his weight so he can get the foot from this side of his body over to this side. It sort of it just goes to show the hours of work that he's put into developing his leg system. So as this happens, Garry Tonon's going to extend his hips, throw Danis away. It causes Danis to sort of rebalance and have to go and balance himself on this leg because all his weight's being sent in this direction. You can sort of see that Tonon's extended himself up and long, and he's up on his neck and shoulders here. And at the same time, this arm here is pulling the leg over the top.
So what's interesting about this as well, if you think about it, aside from a context of technique of jiu-jitsu, and we think about it in terms of a principle of grappling, the same position that just occurred there was a very similar body mechanic to what was going on in the Uchimata takedown before. So Tonon's in underneath the hips. He's forcing Danis to extend and elevate his limbs. And that's a key principle for grappling, isn't it? If we're looking at takedowns or looking to disturb balance, you want to get in under the most central point of gravity and start extending and manipulating balance that way.
Yeah. And like you say, you can sort of see here, Tonon won the battle of the balance here. But it's like the theory that we sort of talk about a lot for sweeps, isn't it, as well, where you've got 4 legs of a table, and if you take one of those legs away, it's going to be easily toppled. Now, here Danis he's got 2 legs here to where he's going to be balanced on, but he's taken 1 leg away, and he's sort of pushing him towards the space that he can't really balance with because he's already taken that leg away where he's going to be able to balance from. And
again, to be fair, in Danis's credit, as soon as he's hit the mat here, he's bringing that foot in to start kicking away and trying to clear the knee line.
You could even possibly argue that did Danis decide to go to the ground here as well? Like, he might have known or felt that his defenses would have been better with him sort of, rather than fighting his balance, he can fight to free his leg on the ground, which puts him a bit more at risk because it gives Tonon the space to start attacking, but it also gives Danis more tools to use to escape. He's no longer just got his arms where he's trying to fight the legs while he's trying to hop around for balance. He's now got his leg, 2 arms, and he's not having to worry about his balance now, so he can start defending more effectively. And as we sort of go through here, like you mentioned before, Danis is using his foot here to drive pressure through Tonon's hips to make him sort of travel further down his leg. He's got his arm here posting on the knee to try and clear this knee line. Like when me and Bonn are referring to a knee line, we're talking about getting your own knee below your opponent's hips. So your opponent's hips and thighs, because this is where they can get the most torque and the most pressure through the knee. And you can see Tonon's got he's got control over his hips. So he's got the control of the hips here. He's got the ankle, and he's using his thighs to drive inward pressure here to control the knee line. And like Bonn mentioned earlier, he's doing a really good job here of actually trying to free it up. But you can see the pressure Tonon's putting through the knee there.
Yeah, I think this series has quite a telling impact on the rest of the match, because this is super tight. And I think, as we were both discussing on this the other day, I think he tweaks his knee here, doesn't he, to some extent?
Yeah.
And that has a bit of an effect on the wrestling and his willingness to engage in the rest of the match. Like, that's tight. I mean, as you said, going down to the mat might have been his best option to avoid having to tap, but he's still sustained some level of damage.
Yeah.
And kind of going back to what Simon was just talking about there, and the highlighted annotation on the screen, like if anybody's not uber familiar with the mechanics of attacking the legs and feels like it's a bit of a mystery, it's kind of no different from attacking an armbar. The bit of the joint on the limb that we're looking to attack is the middle one, and you want to isolate at both ends of the limb that you're attacking. Is kind of a good way to think about it, isn't it? So if we're looking to attack and put pressure on the knee, which is where the pressure from a heel hook is going to go to, we can see there that Garry Tonon's got pressure above the knees with his legs. He's locking it and preventing an escape there. And then also at the bottom of the limb, which in this case, attacking the leg, is at the ankle. So those two control points is going to allow him to keep the pressure whilst he manipulates and torques the middle joint, which is the knee on this occasion. In an armbar, it'd be the same mechanics. Like, nothing would look too dissimilar from this to an armbar, except from the rotational force. But on an armbar, we'd be looking to attack the elbow.
I think another thing worth noting as well, for those that are unfamiliar with heel hooks, is this here, what you can see is Danis's heel, and Tonon's got his toes trapped in the armpit, and he's trying to basically push his heel and send it in a rotational direction to the other side of his body. And you can see by his face the intention he's got for this. And there was a point where, if I just freeze it a little bit when we get to here, you can see the structures around the knee here that are tight. So he's got his sort of tendon here, or on the back of the knee. You can see a bit of a twist in the front of the leg there as well. Like, fair play to him, he's got a great poker face, but that's making my knee hurt watching that.
So, yeah, another thing as well there, Tonon's hips are up off the floor. He's driving that lateral pressure in against the knee, isn't he? I just think that was worthwhile explaining, because like some people, the naming of the technique might be a little bit confusing about where the actual technique is being applied. So like heel hook would infer that actually you're attacking the heel.
Yeah.
Whereas in actual fact, it's a technique that's going to cause damage to the knee. I think that's probably just worthwhile making a distinction for people who maybe aren't ultra familiar with it.
No, 100%. I agree with that.
Yeah. But yeah, nasty position, and like Danis manages to do a good job of getting out of this eventually. But yeah, this isn't a comfortable position to be in. Like, that look on his face now is like, oh shit.
Yeah. And you can sort of see with Tonon, like his readjustments, he's trying to push that heel across. We'll hit the play button here because he starts to escape from here in a second.
I didn't know at some point whether he was going to try and change that to a knee bar, to be honest.
It wouldn't have surprised if he would have, to be honest. But I think the way that he's got the heel, it probably would have caused him to lose the knee line a little bit sooner, maybe, if he would have transitioned to that knee bar, because you can sort of see, yeah, it was super tight, but at the same time, he was getting lower and lower down Danis's leg. So I think he could feel that he was losing the leg position, and maybe keeping the toes in the armpit and the bite on the heel was the best opportunity he had to try and attack it. Because you sort of see towards the end of it, he transitions to try and attack a toe hold as well, where he attacks the foot and the ligaments from the outer foot here, where he's pushing the foot down, controlling the heel, just trying to get as much disruption to that leg as he can. But Danis comes away. If you just make note of the way Danis carries his leg now, he doesn't do it for the whole match, but just for the next maybe 10, 15 seconds, it's the leg that's not got the band on it. So you can sort of see how he carries himself on it a little bit differently. He walks in it a little bit differently, a little bit heavier. There's some disruption there, and there's some damage that's happened to that knee.
Yeah, for people who haven't had that technique applied to them, it might look like a really small movement, but it's quite damaging, isn't it? And the damage that it does cause is just not allowing you to have stability in that joint and put weight through it.
Yes,
and that actually has, like we'll see in a minute when we go through into the next sequences of the match, or if you go and watch this match in full, is that Danis is a little bit less willing to commit and go forward now, possibly based off the back of that injury, but possibly also just based on the fact that he's felt out Tonon's superior wrestling up until this point. So,
no, definitely. I think like the next point that we sort of wanted to touch on really was Tonon's guard. Like we mentioned it sort of at the start, but for me, Tonon's got one of the better guards in the grappling scene at the moment. And we can sort of see it being displayed here. Like, for those who sort of might be unfamiliar with this position, but it looks like Danis is passing here. But if we just pause this section here before we take it back, we can sort of see that Tonon isn't stopping. Yeah, Danis might be starting to pass the guard and control the torso, but this grip allows him to pull Danis across the body, as we can sort of see in a second. And he just recovers his guard very, very easily.
I mean, probably safe to say that the series that we discussed earlier, where Tonon was kind of looking for that position on the leg, that's probably the technique that he's looking to achieve off the back of that, isn't it? Like a 2-on-1 control on the leg, and then either a leg entanglement or a sweep like that. Then now this whole next bit of the match is Tonon's kind of trying to encourage Danis to come into his guard. He's just had good success with those leg attacks. It's a case of going back and forth between guard pulling and wrestling until the final sequencing on the match now. But yeah, just an excellent display of guard retention from Garry Tonon again.
Like I say, he's like he sort of plays. He doesn't just sort of do your techniques. He has fun with it. He plays with it. He's very loose with it. He's not sort of stiff when he's grappling, which for me is great to watch as a fan.
Yeah, it makes it exciting to watch. There's a lot of techniques on display, and it's good for the sport. You know, I personally, a lot of, like when I've watched matches before and some that have not been particularly exciting, yeah, let's definitely pause that there because we'll come back to that in a second, because that's a really nice entry. But some matches when you're watching them, even as a fan of grappling, if you're watching them without an analytical eye and you're trying to take something out of it, some of them can be quite boring. So it's a real refreshing match to watch when you've got somebody like Garry Tonon or Jeff Glover putting on a bit of a display and making jiu-jitsu exciting for people who aren't necessarily players or big fans, because probably most people watching jiu-jitsu, it's fair to say, are actually players of jiu-jitsu as well. Don't think there's anybody really watching jiu-jitsu who doesn't participate.
No, like even for like MMA fans, we don't really see them watching grappling matches. Like even when John Jones had a grappling match on Submission Underground, there wasn't that many. There wasn't any that I know of non-grappling fans or grappling participants watching that match.
There's a bit of a crossover now between between promotions, isn't there? These like grapplers fighting against MMA fighters, and I think the grapplers are doing a really good job on those shows, as are the MMA guys as well. But like, they know that it's an opportunity to promote the sport, and it's not just a case of like getting a finish as quick as possible, trying to pull guard, get a heel hook, and have it over and done with it. It's kind of displaying what the sport can do. And I think a really good advocate as well, actually, from the MMA side of things for grappling is Ben Henderson. Like, if you go back and watch some of his matches on Polaris in particular, like, really good display of grappling from a high-level MMA competitor. Like,
I even say as well, Wagner Osha, like, because they both fought on a Polaris match. He's got like really good MMA credentials, UFC vet, and for those that haven't watched it, the Combat Worlds, Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds that are on YouTube, it's kind of like open palm strikes crossed with grappling. And the semi-finals, was it Nathan Orchard where they were dropping to a knee just to palm the jaw of their opponent, and I was like, okay, you've bent the rules to make them fit what you want to achieve, but they were some really good matches.
Yeah. Make grappling violent again. But back to the match. There's a really nice Uchigari entry sweep into a single in a second, isn't there? So let's just go through that now and play through this sequence. Like, Tonon does a good job of getting Danis to go heavy on the lead leg, and immediately drops down into an inside ankle sweep. Uchigari then comes up on the single leg and just chases him down with it. It's just like aggressive grappling, isn't it?
Yeah. I think as well, another, like, touching back on the psychology of things, just looking how loose Garry is. But let's just go back to here where Bonn mentioned about they made him go heavy on one foot. So this, the grips they've got between here with the fingers, Garry sort of pulls him forward. Danis steps and plants his foot. Now, knowing that this foot's where the heel's off the ground, this other foot's going to be solidly planted here now, as that's carrying Danis's weight. And now Garry steps in, hooks around, and catches that heel. Like, just lovely.
Danis does a good job of reacting and backing out there, doesn't he?
Yeah, really good job. I think he probably might have saw it coming. But the impressive part here as well is Garry Tonon's ability to continually attack and move to a secondary attack here and just keep working and pushing forward for getting what he wants. And
he gets that bite on the leg, doesn't he? I think Danis is trying to think about fleeing and escaping the mat, so the referee kind of breaks it and resets in the middle. But like, when we carry on playing here, Tonon's not having any of that. He's like, get back here. I've got you. You ain't going anywhere. And then starts backing up, and you can see in his head at this point of the match, like, I'm going to pull and try and create a leg entanglement in off this, because he's got the single. He's achieving that inside position, and there's nothing stopping him from sitting back and attacking on the leg entanglement.
No, not at all. I think one thing that this reminds me of as well is, like, do you ever like take nieces and nephews to like a playground, and you're sort of like, right, we're gonna go home now, guys, and they just start kicking off, and it's like you're trying to drag them out of the playground, going, come on,
you can't heel hook kids at the park.
Well, I got told that afterwards, but
this is, I mean, kids and white belts, probably best to stay away from heel hooking them. Although I do like, when I've got techniques to practice, jumping in on the kids class and just trying to snap on as many heel hooks as possible. I think it's a really good way of developing your technique.
Oh, definitely. And it shows them as well.
Yeah. Got to put a bit of fear in them when they grow up, haven't you? Because I'm going to be old at some point. So if I'm still training when I'm in my 50s and 60s, so it's a bit of psychology starting 20 years early there.
But like you said, like, Danis sort of uses this to try and set up his leg attack, doesn't he?
Tonon or Danis?
I think, Danis sort of. So if you sort of go back to it here, I think Danis sort of tries to run off the mat to get the reset. Tonon drags him back in, and Danis sort of goes for that leg attack initially. So see here?
Yep.
Just rewind it a touch. You can sort of see where he goes with. So if you watch this leg and watch what his arms do, he tries to scoop in on Garry's leg and to pull the heel in, but Garry does a really good job here of sort of getting his leg out of the way. But Danis really tries to fight for it.
I think the main problem on that attack there, if we kind of go back and just freeze frame just before he leaves the floor, is that the leg that's across the stomach isn't actually deep enough, is it? And he's not able to get in below the knee. So if he was a little bit higher up on with his leg that Garry's actually holding up off the floor, or that was slightly deeper, he'd be above the knee line, like we were talking about before, and have a lot more success on the attack. But he's not deep enough, and essentially what he ends up doing is wrapping up his shin below the knee, whereas he actually wants his knees and thighs above Tonon's knee.
Yeah. I think, like I say, adding a few more to that as well, if he would have got his knee possibly behind, so rather than trying to hook it with his foot, because he knows where his other leg is, rather than trying to use his instep to control Garry's leg, if he would have got his knee behind Garry's knee, kind of like the scissor takedown, he probably would have had a bit more success in taking hold of Tonon's leg.
Yep.
But like I say, Tonon's footwork and his awareness in this position sort of got him the better of this exchange. And you can see he goes straight in the attack himself. And
it's a nice attempt from a bad position from Danis, isn't it? But then, as you say, now it creates that leg entanglement battle. And there's a good exchange here. They're kind of fighting away. Both players are trying to manipulate the position, but Garry's got a good hold of that leg and just persists with it.
That's it, and he's not letting go. And just that control of the knee, which is where he managed to find the finish.
Again, a really similar position to the earlier exchange. And is it actually on the same leg again? Is it on the opposite leg this time? I think it's on the opposite leg, isn't it?
It's the opposite leg this time.
Yeah. So as you can see there, he's nice and high up on the leg. He's got a good pinch of the ankle underneath the armpit, and he's controlling both upper and lower section of the limb. And that is a nasty ass finish.
But
so like we were saying before, when we go through this, if we kind of freeze frame in position just before the finish, we'll see what we were talking about in terms of where the pressures actually apply to. So control at the top and bottom of the limb, but we'll see that Danis's knee ends up facing in the complete opposite direction. So we
can sort of see it here at the moment, can't we? Like his toes are facing backwards and his knees clearly facing forwards.
Yep.
And
yeah, that's not fun.
That's going through me, that.
Yeah. So for anybody who's not really paying attention there, his toes are supposed to be facing the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I say, I think this is where his knees facing the same direction as his toes. And then a little bit further forward, his knee is facing the complete opposite direction. But I think one thing I want to sort of take a look at is the level of control that Tonon has for the whole of this sequence of this leg that he's got hold of. And we can sort of see it from the get-go from here. So this hand doesn't leave the knee, and the other hand's got hold of the heel. And this just stops Danis's ability to really try and rip it out. And then as he starts to adjust himself, see how he's keeping hold of this knee where it keeps the leg in place. And we'll see when Tonon adjusts his hips and finds a space for this knee, he gets underneath Danis's leg and sandwiches it between. So they're sneaking this knee underneath here straight away, which is going to help him control the knee line with his own legs. And that's before he's even passed it over to the other side to where he can start attacking it effectively. And then from there, he's keeping that leg and he rolls with it. Knee sneaks underneath. So the knee is going to come through here. This is going to go over the top. And he just wraps it up straight away. And we can sort of see the direction that Tonon's rotating his hips in. And he's attacking the knee bar at first. But we've got to point out here again, Danis's reactions are driving Tonon away from him to really sort of stop that leg lock being put on there and try and get his knee line above or below Garry's hips. But like I said, we've both been in like these kind of situations, and it's proper like squeaky in it when you're there.
Yeah, I don't think you can really appreciate what's going on here unless you've been in that position yourself, because it doesn't look like there's a lot going on, of course, until you get to the point where you can clearly see that the toes are facing in the opposite direction from what they're supposed to be. But yeah, good match, good exchange. Danis has got good awareness on the defence, but I think Garry's just been one step ahead on the loop every time here. And it's just predicting the pattern, staying one step ahead, knowing what the likely reaction is going to be from your opponent, and even trying to bait them into giving you the reaction that you want.
Yeah. And we can sort of see here the adjustments. So it looks like from this angle, this arm is controlling the foot, while his other arm's going to start to swim underneath and take hold of that heel. Because he sort of rolls up, creates space, and he drops forward so the toes sneak under the armpit. And then he repositions his hand to then find the heel. And then it doesn't take long being in this position for Danis to tap. You can sort of see the adjustments he's making. He's tightening it up. And he's making sure that there's no space left for Danis to move in. And as soon as he starts to really get the torque on, he's still attacking the knee bar here, isn't he? But he looks like he's setting up the heel hook. I don't know why he's grabbing Danis's toes there.
Playing a bit of footsie just to put him off.
Tickle his foot to clear the post. With when it gets to the sort of the finishing sequence with the actual heel hook, it goes on really fast, and it wouldn't surprise me if Danis come away with some sort of knee injury or knee issue after it. You can sort of see he's waiting, but Tonon's done all this setting up here to get the heel isolated. It's almost kind of like a waiting game now. I think Danis is more waiting for the reset, and then Tonon was just waiting for that space just to attack that heel hook.
Yeah, didn't let go of that bite that he had on the heel and was just waiting for an adjustment where he could start to apply pressure onto the side of the knee with his hips.
And you could tell by the face there, he probably felt something pop. Yeah.
But again, another really good match there to go over. I enjoyed going through that one. Maybe a little bit more of an exciting match overall with flair on techniques than some of the other matches that we broke down. But again, a lot of lessons to take away and meditate over now when we've not got the opportunity to practice on the mats, but lessons that we can learn and take back and take them onto the mats when we can get back to training.
No, definitely. I think it's something that a lot of practitioners should really be trying to do with the time while they're off the mats. Like tape studies, very, very effective and useful, where you can sort of see where the sequences that you're trying to do or the techniques that you're trying to apply sort of work in the real life, and you can sort of see those real life reactions from other players. So you can so you can figure out where you're going to go next from applying that said technique.
Yeah, and there's definitely a big difference between seeing a technique applied against an opponent in competition versus watching an instructional on it. And I think both ends of the spectrum there are really important to learning a technique. It's obviously going to be a little bit easier to pick up the smaller detail mechanics from watching an instructional on how to do something and learning from your coach in the gym how to do it, but actually seeing the problem solving aspect of it going against a live opponent is where it can start to play into where you apply it into the roles yourself. So it's really important to go back and watch tape, watch old footage, and see somebody who's got a similar game to what you want to play or has techniques similar to what you want to apply, and look at the problem solving and the small things that they're doing to set up the different stages. It's like putting different padlocks in place before your opponent can start to undo those padlocks, and just seeing what the higher level guys are doing to be able to actually put those techniques in practice. I think Lachlan Giles is a really good one for looking at the moment for his run through ADCC in the previous matches, because he's also got good breakdowns on his techniques as well. So, and I know there's a couple of good videos of that on YouTube at the moment, so they'll be definitely good to go and check out.
Yeah, definitely highly recommend that. Like you said, adding the padlocks in, or even boiling the potatoes.
Boiling a potato with the classic, yeah.
I
Simon's got a great book of euphemisms, yeah. But I can't believe we've managed to get through that whole Josh Barnett Dean Lister match without talking about boiling a potato.
Well, you know, I didn't want to take the shine away from Barnett.
You missed the trick. You missed the trick, big style. I was even there. I remember I was talking about cooking your opponent, and you must have just been there burning to get off the
I was like seaming. I was rocking back and forth, trying to hold it back, going boil potatoes.
Kind of like that meme that you see where the guy's got the vein busted out of his head, and he's like, "When you've not talked about boiling potatoes for 5 minutes."
But no, thank you for tuning in and listening to this. Watch this episode, guys. We'd love to hear your feedback and hear what other matches you'd like us to cover. We're going to get the next one up for next week. But yeah, subscribe, follow, share, and give us all the feedback you want.
Yeah, most of all, just like thanks for enjoying the matches. Like we appreciate the feedback that's coming back from you guys as well. And we're taking as much away from the match as we hope you guys are, and anything that you want to send our way in terms of suggestions, like we're open to. We're enjoying the process of this as well, and can't wait to start using this knowledge that we're doing now when we get back onto the mats. So yeah, big thanks to you guys as well.
Oh, thank you.